You ever wonder why Latinos for Trump are still loyal to the Republican Party, to Donald Trump, despite everything that we've now witnessed, and everybody can clearly see the dangers of these ICE agents, the racism, the horrible conditions, inhumane conditions in ICE facilities, everything that's happening, they're still 100% loyal to Donald Trump, and you can never convince them otherwise, right? Well, earlier this week, the CEO of NVIDIA, one of the most powerful companies in the world, right? Technology companies, chips to be exact, I believe. Was asked that who's the most intelligent person that he'd ever known, right? And he said his answer was interesting because he said that it was previously thought that it was developers, it was engineers, it was people that were very well educated. But he said that it turned out that AI, artificial intelligence, was able to determine that that was actually probably the easiest thing for them, for AI, right? And he said that it was, in his opinion, it wasn't even the people that got necessarily good grades in school, right? It was the people who can predict outcomes that he felt were intelligent, right? It was people that, based on their experience with people, based on knowledge of different fields, that were able to accurately almost always predict, the outcomes of things. He said that this is going to determine who the real intelligent people are, right? And we have a school system in America in which, our kids in school are taught to be workers. They're not taught to be independent thinkers. They're not taught to be CEOs or stuff like that, right? So a lot of these kids come out of school thinking that they're smart, just because they got good grades, just because they were loyal servants, they were loyal to this school system that teaches them to be workers, right? And so, but that was a very interesting question, in my a real interesting answer, in my opinion, right? Because we now know a lot of different things about the Republican Party that we didn't know back then, right? In 2016, for example, when I volunteered for the Bernie Sanders campaign, and some of the dealership, we happened to get on a phone call with Bernie Sanders, and I remember the Bernie Sanders administration telling us, don't even bother with Trump supporters, don't even waste your time. And at the time, I thought it was ludicrous, right? Because these people aren't retarded. I mean, they're not legal, they're not retarded. I mean, I thought there was a way we can get through them and reason and facts and stuff like that. And I didn't know why the Sanders campaign just didn't even bother with them, right? But we now know that a lot of these people who are Republicans are, a lot of them have gone through traumas, right? Who had been molested themselves, who it's deep down in their core, right? They may not even necessarily remember that, but a lot of the times, they're loyal to they would be loyal to a pedophile like Donald Trump, right? They would be loyal. They would be screaming the loudest against gay rights, right? Especially if they're trying to hide it, right? Because we now know that during Republican conventions, the Tinder or whatever it's called, the Grinder app, literally crashes, just because all the men who are in the closet, right, who represent the Republican Party, who are screaming the loudest against gay rights, right? And it's not to make fun of these people, right? It's to try to understand the way their mind works, the way that they think, right? Because they clearly have unresolved issues, right? And what is it that their propaganda that they listen to online and Fox News, Newsmax also teach them is that that getting mental help, getting psychological help, it's a bad thing, right? So they none of them believe in it. If you talk to them, they'll never ever submit themselves to getting assistance, right? And these people don't seem to know that they're next, right? These Latinos for Trump. I just booked a flight to go to Washington D.C. on April 1st, right, to hear out the Supreme Court case of birthright citizenship, in which they don't seem to know that. That this is going to have devastating consequences for them, right? They don't seem to know that they're the next ones that are going to be targeted, right? And they believe that it's only going to be the people who were immigrants and happen to have a child, and all those newborns are not going to have citizenship, right? But that's how they started, right? With ICE agents, they said they were only going to deport criminals, but then they started going after everybody, including U.S. citizens who are still to this day in ICE detentions, right, in horrible conditions. And so they don't seem to be able to predict what's happening next to them, right? Because they don't have that capability. They don't have the capability to have sympathy, empathy for others. They don't have that. It took me a long time to understand that myself, right? And so unless it happens to them, like in Minnesota, where their kids are being pistol whipped, they're being dragged out of schools, they themselves are being dragged out of cars, right, for simply being brown. That's the reality, right? Until it happens to them, they don't seem to realize that they're next, right? That they're the next target. And so you have these loyalists to Trump who are going to continue that way, and unfortunately, in my opinion, they're gonna live and they're gonna die ignorant.